I will tell you, because that was my first day on the job, that 9/11 was taken very hard by the workforce, that we had failed the country. We had failed to keep Americans out of harm's way. However, that was not the case with much of the leadership. Leadership was really in denial. I would hear the following phrase, which I think one person in particular probably had regrets ever saying more publicly, that 9/11 was a gift to NSA. A gift. It was really an interesting bifurcation. A very secret organization, knowing that we were part of a systemic failure called 9/11. I will also tell you 9/11 could have been prevented. One of the things that's not well publicly known is that part of my whistleblowing involved being called as a material witness in the short months after 9/11 for 2 9/11 congressional investigations in which I gave highly classified information, operational intelligence, information that NSA had never shared, or information it did not know it had that was never shared, that if it had been shared and properly acted upon, probably would have stopped 9/11 alone, separate from any other intelligence agency or department.
November 1996. During this period, Osama Bin Laden uses a satellite phone to direct al-Qaeda's operations. The phone, a compact M satellite phone about the size of a laptop computer, was purchased by a student in Virginia named Ziyad Khaleel for $7,500 using the credit card of a British man named Saad al-Fagi. After purchasing the phone, Khalil sent it to Khalid al-Fawwaz, al-Qaeda's unofficial press secretary in London. Al-Fawwaz then shipped it to bin Laden in Afghanistan. It appears U.S. intelligence actually tracks the purchase as it occurs, probably because an older model satellite phone bin Laden has is already being monitored. Bin Laden's phone is believed to be used by other top al-Qaeda leaders as well, including Ayman al-Zawahiri and Mohammed Atef. Al-Fawwaz also buys satellite phones for other top al-Qaeda leaders around the same time. Though the calls made on these phones are encrypted, the NSA is able to intercept and decrypt them. As one U.S. official will put it, in early 2001, codes were broken. The Los Angeles Times will report the monitoring of these phones produced tens of thousands of pages of transcripts over 2 years. Bin Laden's satellite phone replaces an older model he used in the Sudan that apparently was also monitored by the NSA. Billing records for his new phone are eventually released to the media in early 2002. Newsweek will note a country-by-country analysis of the bills provided U.S. authorities were a virtual roadmap to important al-Qaeda cells around the world. The countries calling to the phone were Britain, Yemen, Sudan, Iran, Azerbaijan, Kenya, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, the United States, Italy, Malaysia, Senegal, Egypt, and Iraq. According to a different account, bin Laden will attempt to use a different phone communications method, but U.S. intelligence will soon discover it and continue monitoring his calls. July 29, 1998, the NSA began monitoring the phone calls between bin Laden and Fawwaz. However, one number kept popping up. On August 7th at around 4:45 a.m., about 3 hours before a bombing takes place, a fax taking credit for the bombings is sent to a shop near al-Fawwaz's office. The bombings were the East Africa bombings of Tanzania and Kenya. The fingerprints of his associates, Idris and Abdel Bari, are later found on the fax. They fax a copy of this to the media from a post office shortly after the bombings, and the fingerprints are found on the fax as well. Canadian intelligence is monitoring an operative named Mahmoud Jabala, who is serving as a communications relay between operatives in Baku and London. He is monitored talking to people both in Baku and London just before the fax is sent from Baku. The NSA has also been monitoring the operatives in Baku. It is not clear why the Canadians or the NSA failed to warn about the bombings based on these monitored phone calls. Before bin Laden's phone calls were regularly translated and analyzed in less than an hour or so. It has not been explained why the surge of phone calls before the embassy bombings did not result in any attack warnings. The three men will shortly be arrested after the embassy bombings. In the hours after the August 7, 1998 attack on the U.S. Embassy in Nairobi, Kenya, a bomber involved in that attack, Mohammed al-Wahi, makes a series of phone calls to al-Qaeda associate Ahmed al-Hada, who runs an al-Qaeda communications hub in Sana'a, Yemen. Al-Wahi briefly stayed at the hub about 3 months before the bombings and made some calls from there. He traveled to another location, including Pakistan, and flew to Kenya on August 2nd. Beginning August 4th, he makes a series of calls to al-Hada at the Yemen hub. The details of these calls have not been revealed, but they continue until about 2 hours before the embassy bombings even take place. Not knowing that the NSA were already aware of this number in Yemen. It's this number that kept calling Bin Laden's phone in Afghanistan in 1996. The NSA had begun monitoring both Bin Laden's satellite phone and the house in Yemen. Al-Wahi is supposed to be martyred in the attack, but he runs away at the last minute and survives. Beginning on August 8th, he repeatedly calls al-Hada, asking for help getting out of Kenya. He eventually receives $1,000 from him. Al-Hada is actually about to fly to Kenya to help al-Wahi get out. However, al-Wahi is arrested on August 12th. Al-Hada also receives 3 calls from Bin Laden's satellite phone, which is being monitored by the NSA. Following a raid by London police, the FBI allegedly traced a fax claiming responsibility for the attack through Baku, Azerbaijan, to Bin Laden's satellite phone, which leads them to the communications hub in Sana'a. Phone records for the hub direct them to al-Wahi in Nairobi. Al-Wahi has already been arrested based on a tip-off, and after the FBI interrogators realize he is lying to them, he confesses to calling a number. The translator during al-Wahi's interview is Mike Fagali, who will later be accused of serious improprieties after 9/11 by whistleblower Sibel Edmonds. Author Lawrence Wright will later say this Yemeni telephone number would prove to be one of the most important pieces of information the FBI would ever discover, allowing investigators to map the links of al-Qaeda network all over the globe. John Antisev is the man who interviews al-Wahi at the hospital in which he was trying to receive medical care for burns on his back. Antisev receives the number from al-Wahi, not knowing that the NSA were already made aware of the number 2 years prior. August 7th, 1998, calls are made using Bin Laden's satellite phone to an al-Qaeda communications hub in Sana'a, Yemen. According to MSNBC, 2 of the calls from Bin Laden's phone are made days before the bombings. The NSA is intercepting all calls, receiving and coming. His phone is used to make dozens of calls to the Yemen communications hub between 1996 and 98. However, it is unclear what is done with the intercepts, as the NSA is sometimes unwilling to share information with other U.S. intelligence agencies. The communications hub is run by Ahmed al-Hada, who is unaware that his phone is being monitored by the NSA. Mid-August 1998, al-Qaeda operatives used the communications hub in Yemen to put everything together before the bombing of the USS Cole. The communications hub, run by al-Hada, who U.S. officials later described as a prominent al-Qaeda member, is believed to have been involved in the Cole bombing with the recent phone calls. However, only the NSA is aware of what's being said in the phone. The hub is being monitored by the NSA and other U.S. intelligence from 1998 at least, and information gleaned from it is used to thwart a number of plots. However, this is questionable. The U.S. monitors the house through bugs planted inside and through spy satellites to monitor people leaving and entering it. The hub was also used before the 1998 embassy bombings and will be used to communicate with certain 9/11 hijackers before 9/11. The CIA would later have planted that bug inside the house. However, they can only listen to half of the phone calls. When the FBI arrives in Yemen to investigate the Cole bombing, it finds that telephone records show that suspects in the Cole bombing have been in touch with suspects from the 1998 East Embassy bombings in Kenya. Calls between the hub and an al-Qaeda cell in Ireland that seems to have a connection to the Cole bombing are also intercepted during part of this period. It is unclear why the information does not allow the NSA to thwart any of these plots. Despite the scope of the monitoring, NSA Director Michael Hayden will later say there were no intercepts the NSA could have exploited to stop the bombings. Quote, when the Cole disaster took place, I had brought in my desk in this office every stitch of NSA reporting on that they could in any way be related to this. And I went through it report by report, and I sent a letter out to our entire workforce, which was essentially, you performed well and keep up the good work. Late August 1998, several of Ahmed al-Hada's relatives died fighting for al-Qaeda before 9/11, a fact known to U.S. intelligence, most notably the CIA. However, the NSA may already be aware of both of these numbers, as well as the satellite number to Bin Laden's satellite phone, the phone in Ahmed al-Hada's home in Yemen, and another phone which was being communicated between both the satellite phone and the Ahmed al-Hada phone. The U.S. intelligence community now begins a joint effort to monitor the number. The NSA and CIA jointly plant bugs both inside the house now, tap the phones and monitor visitors with spy and satellites. Human intelligence and signals intelligence run both by the CIA. However, signals intelligence will be the prominent agency belonging to the NSA. U.S. intelligence also learns that the communication hubs in al-Qaeda logistics centers used by agents around the world to communicate with each other and plan attacks. Then what's the deal? Why are the attacks still happening? The joint effort enables the FBI to map al-Qaeda's global organization, and at least 3 of the hijackers use the number, enabling the NSA to intercept their communications and find out about an important al-Qaeda meeting in Malaysia. It appears al-Qaeda continues to use the phone line until Samir al-Hada dies resisting arrest in early 2002. Samir, the son to Ahmed al-Hada. Summer of 2000, the CIA sends an officer from its counterterrorism center to the NSA to review raw transcripts of intercepted communications between terrorists. However, the officer is only there for a brief period and is subsequently withdrawn and not replaced, damaging the CIA's ability to exploit the information gleaned from the intercepts. The CIA only previously received summaries of intercepted calls, not the transcripts themselves, and had been arguing for years that it needed the actual transcripts to better understand the material. After the single officer leaves the NSA, which intercepts calls between the US-based 9/11 hijackers and an al-Qaeda communications hub in Yemen, the reason the CIA gives for not replacing him is resource constraints. However, in a later report in 2005, the CIA's Office of Inspector General will regard this failure as so serious that it will recommend an accountability board be convened to review the performance of the CTC managers responsible, and will suggest that officers should have detailed to the NSA on a consistent full-time basis. Early 2001, the CIA's Bin Laden unit, Alex Station, reduces the FBI's access to NSA material tracking al-Qaeda members. The FBI had previously used such intercepts to map al-Qaeda's global network in New York. The NSA's intercepts at least one call from one of the 9/11 hijackers in the U.S., Nawaf al-Hazmi, to an AL communications hub in Yemen. After this, but does not tell the FBI. Authors Joe and Susan Trento will comment later that by doing this and withholding the hijackers' identities from the FBI, the CIA effectively ended any chance in the months leading up to 9/11 of discovering that Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi were actually al-Qaeda agents destined to play major roles in the 9/11 attacks. What was not known to the FBI, but was known to the CIA and the NSA, was that Khalid al-Mihdhar was actually the son-in-law to Ahmed al-Hada, for he had married his daughter, Hoda al-Hada. Khalid al-Mihdhar and Nawaf al-Hazmi were known both to the NSA and the CIA in the previous 16 months to 9/11. However, this was never shared with the FBI. Returning back to 98, beginning in the autumn, the FBI uses the phone records of an al-communications hub run by Ahmed al-Hada and his son Samir, which were building a map of al-Qaeda's global organization. This map was being constructed with the help of its CTC unit leader, John O'Neill, and the I-49 unit, along with Dan Coleman. According to Dan Coleman, al-Hada is the uncle of half the violent jihadists we know in the country. Several of his sons and sons-in-law are al-Qaeda operatives, and some will be killed in wars in the Middle East. The number keeps being monitored by the NSA and the CIA for the next 3 years, and it daily mines intelligence that helps authorities foil a series of plots. However, none of the plots that happened, including the U.S. Embassy bombings in Tanzania and Kenya, the USS Cole bombing, are foiled. And, of course, the one biggest plot of all, 9/11. In the months previous to the year 2000 and the Millennium Plot, the NSA continues to monitor al-Qaeda communications hub in Yemen, in the Sudan, and Afghanistan. In early of 99, the intercepts communications mentioned a name, Nawaf al-Hazmi. The agency is the only agency in the world who learns of a hijacker's name. However, this information is not disseminated to the intelligence community, as it apparently does not meet NSA reporting thresholds. The 9/11 congressional inquiry will later say those thresholds vary depending on the judgment of the NSA analyst who is reviewing the intercept and the subject, location, and content of the intercept. However, intelligence organization intercepts the same or similar calls and reports this to the NSA. The inquiry comments, NSA's practice was to review such reports and disseminate those responsive to U.S. intelligence requirements. For an undetermined reason, the NSA did not disseminate the report. The NSA continues to intercept such calls and finds more information a few months later, near the end of 99. There will be additional intercepts that give the full name of Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and Salim al-Hazmi. But while the NSA will provide some information about these intercepts to the NSA and other agencies, they will not go back to the earlier intercepts to figure out Nawaf's full and close connection name, as well as Khalid al-Mihdhar. December 29th, 1999, the NSA listens to a phone call revealing that hijackers Khalid al-Mihdhar, Nawaf al-Hazmi, and Salim al-Hazmi are to attend an important al-Qaeda summit meeting in Malaysia. Al-Mihdhar's full name was mentioned, as well as the first names of hijackers Nawaf al-Hazmi and Salim al-Hazmi. On this day, the NSA shares this information with the CIA's Alex Station Bin Laden unit. Other U.S. intelligence agencies, including FBI headquarters and the FBI's New York field office, are told as well. Although Khalid al-Mihdhar's full name was mentioned in one call, the NSA only passes on his first name. Also, the NSA has already learned from monitoring the Yemen hub that Nawaf's last name is al-Hazmi, and that he is longtime friends with al-Mihdhar. However, they either don't look this up in their records or don't pass it on to any agency. An NSA analyst makes a comment that is shared between U.S. intelligence that Salim may be Nawaf's younger brother. This would later turn out to be correct. A CIA officer will later tell the 9/11 inquiry that information from the Africa embassy bombings was reviewed in late 99, although a worldwide effort to disrupt Millennium attack plots and a kind of turning fork buzzed when two of the hijackers reportedly planning a trip to Malaysia were linked indirectly to what appeared to be a support element involved with the Africa bombings. The fact that they are connected to the Yemen communications hub already indicates some importance within al-Qaeda. It is learned that they are connected to the embassy bombings in some way. The NSA report about them on this day is entitled Activities of Bin Laden's Associates, showing the clear knowledge of their ties to Bin Laden. The CIA will begin tracking al-Midar and Nawaf al-Hazmi to the Malaysia summit. January 5th. Between January 5th and January 8th of 2000, about a dozen of Osama bin Laden's trusted followers hold a secret top-level al-Qaeda meeting in the city of Kuala Lumpur. According to an unnamed senior CIA official, before the summit started, the CIA learned that 11 young guys were going to attend, and young guys is slang for operatives traveling. Plans for the October 2000 bombing of the USS Cole and the 9/11 attacks are discussed. At the request of the CIA, the Malaysian Secret Service monitors the summit and then passes all information to the CIA's Alex station. The CIA and FBI will later miss many opportunities to foil 9/11, though al-Hazmi and al-Midar and the knowledge of their presence at the summit. The CIA already had known many details about these two men, thanks in part to the NSA. Yazid Sufat is a Malaysian who owns the condominium where the summit is held. He is also a trained biologist and is said to be a leading figure in al-Qaeda's attempts to get biological or chemical weapons. Along in the plot and along in the meeting were some of the most notorious terrorists. Ridwan Isamuddin, who goes by the nickname Hambali, an Indonesian militant heavily involved with the Bajinka plot. Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, often referred to as KSM, an al-Qaeda leader and the alleged mastermind of the 9/11 attacks. He is also supposedly taking part in the Bajinka plot. Khalid bin Atash. Khalid bin Atash is a trusted member of bin Laden's inner circle. He is in charge of bin Laden's bodyguards and serves as bin Laden's personal intermediary, at least for the USS Cole bombing. Abid al-Rahim al-Nashiri. Al-Nashiri is allegedly one of al-Qaeda's top field commanders and operates out of Malaysia while 9/11 is being prepared. He was involved allegedly in arms smuggling and the East Africa's embassy bombings. Ramzi bin al-Shib. Investigators believe he was to be the 20th hijacker. However, his presence at the summit may not be realized until after 9/11, despite the fact that U.S. intelligence has a picture of him next to bin Atash and has video footage of him. This information, which was obtained by the CIA, was never shared with the FBI. Salim al-Hazmi. Salim al-Hazmi was a 9/11 hijacker and brother of Nawaf al-Hazmi. Abu Bara al-Tazizi, aka Zohir Mohammed Saeed, a Yemeni al-Qaeda operative. Al-Tazizi is reportedly meant to be one of the 9/11 hijackers, but would be unable to enter the U.S. due to scrutiny for Yemenis. Fahad al-Quso. Al-Quso is a top al-Qaeda operative who is involved in the bombing of the USS Cole. Ahmed Hikmat Sakir, a suspected al-Qaeda agent of Iraqi nationality. And Dirian Barat, aka Abu Isa al-Hindi, a British citizen of Indian descent. According to an Observer article, Barat is not believed to have been present at the meetings, although his name is supposedly mentioned. Khalid al-Midar and Nawaf al-Hazmi would later leave the Malaysia summit meeting. The CIA and local authorities are running an operation to track militants transiting Dubai Airport, and United Arab Emirates officials secretly make copies of a passport of Salim al-Hazmi. But after the meeting, both Nawaf al-Hazmi and Khalid al-Midar travel to the United States. It is here, according to Richard Blee, head of Alex Station, the CIA's Bin Laden issue station, where it is suggested that the CIA had lost track of Khalid al-Midar and Nawaf al-Hazmi. One agency, however, does not lose track: the NSA. It is the NSA who is monitoring a cell phone being used by Nawaf al-Hazmi. This information was never passed to the CIA, the FBI, or the State Department. The question is, what did the NSA learn about monitoring the two most important numbers in the world at the time? Bin Laden's satellite phone between the years 1996 to 2002, and the Ahmed al-Hada home. The satellite phone between 1992 to 1998, and the Ahmed al-Hada home between 1996 and 2002. Thousands and thousands of transcripts of calls, listened, operations being discussed. The 9/11 Commission had never, hardly ever interviewed Director Hayden while he gave testimony there. The question is why? And the bigger question is this: what information was gleaned from all those phone calls the NSA were listening to on the two most important lines, monitoring both the house in Yemen and the satellite phone used by Bin Laden? What information was collected by the NSA? That is the question we all should be demanding